What is up, YouTube? It's about 5:40 in the morning, Thursday, the 27th of February. And just getting ready I'm on the job site. You can see the sun's just starting to try to peek up over the trees here. And Marshall should be here in about 15 minutes with a big block of geotechnical foam that we're going to utilize under our tanning ledge today, which is something I've been wanting to start doing, but had a hard time sourcing. Turns out my Element boys actually carry it in the warehouse closest to us. So very, very last minute thing. We sent one of Austin's guys on a 9-hour round trip yesterday to get this block, but it's going to lower the pucker factor on one of the two things making me nervous about this pour, down to almost to zero. And it was the biggest pucker factor of the job. As soon as the sun comes up, I'm going to give you guys a walk around of this entire pool. It's about 80,000 gallons. It's going to be 110 cubic yards. All right, guys. We got this. Thad actually drove almost 9 hours round trip to get this. We have this block of geotechnical foam. It's 4 foot by 8 foot by 3 foot. It's actually going to fit what we're doing perfectly if I cut it in half. You can see we chalked a line on it, and I'm getting ready to have some fun with a chainsaw. What we do is when we do when we do tanning ledges or shapes or stairs, we kind of have a rule of thumb. If it's under a certain number of yards, we try to just brace it up and just fill it up with concrete. This one was right on the line because the amount of pressure this much concrete would put outward on our forms was going to raise the pucker factor. We get away with it. We know what we're doing with mixed designs, but this is also about half the cost of concrete. So when we need to fill a volume, if we have access to geotechnical foam, it's a win. And me and Eric at all three had gone down a couple rabbit holes trying to get less than semi quantities, and had run into a few roadblocks or just people who probably weren't on commission and didn't care enough to give us, the information. And then it turns out our guy Sam at Element makes it in his plant. So we're gonna start stocking, a dozen of these or so in our warehouse so we can send them out for your tanning ledges. It's actually going to alleviate a lot of CMU block work, a lot of heavy work, a lot of gravel inside of your shape. And yeah, we're super excited about it. So I'm going to take a chainsaw and go straight massacre on this. And then these will actually fit in as soon as we start pouring concrete. We'll pour the bottom and we're gonna drop this in on top of it to eat about 1.5 yards on each side of the tanning ledge, about 3 yards total. And we will, then we have to inset our bubblers in this foam a little bit. Okay guys, so we got it chopped in half. Wasn't that bad at all. And then I've actually got a bunch of old light deck hats, the things that sit on top of light deck to create taller beams. This height here happens to work out to be exactly the height of 2 Nudura blocks, which you'll see over here on the tanning ledges, little step in that we've got. This is exactly the height. Once we fill in the bottom with concrete, we can place these. I'll have to carve out a groove for the bubbler that's gonna sit in the middle of each one of these. And then there'll be about 8 inches of concrete in front of the steps, and then the whole stairs themselves will be Monopour concrete. But this is gonna eat up, like I said, about 3.3 yards total. Saves us about $300 in concrete if you factor in the cost of this stuff. But it's gonna be great, guys, it's gonna be awesome. Okay guys, so one thing this pool's gonna have is 2 Magic Stream bubblers, Pentair Magic Stream bubblers. This is something we sell on tons of our pool kits. This is the gunite version. They make a vinyl liner one as well. It actually looks super, super similar, just it's got gaskets. I have different water features that I like selling for the bang for the buck, and this is one of them. You got Pentair laminars, which are super cool single deck jets that light the stream of water. They're about $1,500 each. They're very expensive. This little guy here Other than the fact you buy another micro bright light for about $500, there's only a couple $100 feature. So what it does is I have a light that goes in here and points straight up. Then it has a water line feeding here that will blow through a clear Lexan lens, polycarbonate lens, and make a real, they don't actually bubble, they just have a lot of tension in the water that grabs the light, and they kind of make a little fountain. They need to go in less than 12 inches of water. 8 to 10 is perfect, which is what we're gonna have here. But you can see over here, we have a sunken living room. You're gonna have stairs going down in that middle into a place with couches and a fire pit. Both sides of that, the little inset, is where we're gonna put that geotechnical foam and set these bubblers. So as you step in, these bubblers will be on flanking both sides of this entry with a beautiful bright fountain style light. So all I gotta do right now is I'm gonna glue these elbows on, because we actually feed all of our water features with a minimum of a 2-inch line. It's always better to get too much water and have to crank it down than not be able to get enough water to it. A lot of people will run multiple deck jets on a 1.5-inch line, 1-inch line, but you run it 100 feet and you're limiting what you can possibly push through it. So we always upsize our pipes and then just reduce them at the feature. So that's what we're gonna do right now is I'm gonna glue these, put a tailpiece on them, and then be ready to set them. This is unfortunate. We can't set this until the concrete pour has started, because we're gonna lay the geotechnical foam on the concrete so it's completely encapsulated. It goes under it and on all sides. And then while Marshall's doing the catch basin, I will be working on carving the geotech foam out so where these will sit in the foam. I'll foam them in. They'll be set like gangbusters for during the pour. It's cool, but it's a little bit of a timing issue. Okay guys, so it's still just me and Marshall and Thad out here right now, and we're just kind of game planning the pour. I'm gonna give you guys a quick walk around of the whole thing, because once concrete and everybody else shows up, it's gonna be on like Donkey Kong, and at that point, it won't make sense. Marshall's over here right now. We just tried these geotech blocks, and it's got a little 45-degree step to get into that point, and the block won't fit past it. We kind of knew geometrically that probably wasn't gonna fit, so he's taking that stair form off. As soon as we drop the geotech block in, we'll put it back on. So that's no big deal. This job is finally a little less muddy. It's still pretty bad, but for the last week after the snow melted, you'd have like 10-pound shoes with 6 inches of mud stuck on everywhere. But you can see our bracing, our zonzuckles. We're not gonna use the zats over here and on the other side. We're just gonna walk on the wall. It's very sturdy, pretty easy to do. But over here at the catch basin, we have zats hung up. You'll see just an immense amount of kicking. And the reason that is, from this point down, it's not ICF. It's a regular like gates forms, and they're only one-sided, meaning below this wall, when the wall steps down, the concrete will be spilling over. There is foam against that concrete on the inside. I'll try to have Eric draw up a little like schematic so you can understand what I'm saying. But this 4-foot form has nothing supporting it from both sides, meaning it's gonna try to push this way. So we're gonna fill this side up first. We're gonna have the bottom mostly filled up. We're gonna plug it. And then when we fill this, it won't crush in on these forms, and these kickers should hold everything just fine. But this is the pucker factor of this pour today. Because of the geotechnical foam, the other thing that I was worried about is no concern at all. My boys did a really good job. We did epoxy all thread in, a lot of places into the concrete, so it does have ties sort of holding it, but that's only holding as good as it epoxied, and we couldn't really see in there to see how good we got the holes cleaned out. So it's a little bit of a pucker factor. I don't think it's a super high one. Another thing I'll show you guys, remember, this is an infinity edge pool, a 60-foot long spillover, okay? That is pretty cool, pretty technical thing. You'll see I do have a skimmer in here. The entire reason the skimmer is in, it is unnecessary. In fact, not even recommended in a spillover pool. You'll see debates on the internet about whether or not you ever put a skimmer in one. If you have 60 foot of effective skimmer, all the leaves are going over that, and you got a 10-inch wide skimmer doing the same thing. The maintenance guys like them because they can hook a vac to them. They also run around with a thing called a hammerhead usually that is completely autonomous. So I don't know why you would need it, but I did that. I put that skimmer in for 2 reasons. First reason, I will have an autofill on this pool. And the only place the water level changes is in the catch basin. If you think about, I have a pump completely dedicated to dumping water out of this catch basin back into the pool, creating the spillover cycle. It's constantly refilling the pool. So there's no difference in the depth of that pool until this thing is empty, because this is basically like a refill basin. So if the pool is losing water, it only shows here. If there's a big party, which this is entirely what this pool is for, you got a bunch of drunk dudes doing cannonballs and splashing a bunch of water out, this pool is losing water. This is where the water will drop. So our sensor for our leveler will go inside the skimmer. It would just we drill a hole above the water line in the side of the skimmer, and the sensor hangs down there. You can hang it where it's visible, but honestly, it looks like an electric cord, and it freaks people out to see two metal prongs hanging down in the water. So putting it in the skimmer at least makes it a little more elegant solution. The other reason is we in Missouri, in this part of Missouri, have stupid service guys who will come out here and tell a homeowner that I didn't put a skimmer in and I did something wrong, even though that is 1970s thinking and they are completely wrong. So I'm putting it in mainly for the leveler, but also to negate the dummies who might, precede me or succeed me, sorry. So anyway, you can see all the bracing. This thing is kicked extensively. We have turnbuckles, zuckles on both the top of the wall and the catch basin, so we can keep everything string line straight during and just post pour. It's like we got some of our guys just rolled in. We've got a lot of helpers today. If you just wash that day one, you don't have to beat on it. So our marshal's over there banging on stuff, guys, messing up my video because he didn't clean his screed the night before. It is what it is. Real quick, guys. Okay, so we got the Geotech just thrown down in here. It's gonna go up and in here as soon as we pour the bottom. It'll be kind of floating on concrete. We're gonna pour concrete up to like right here, inside there. We're gonna throw that in, fill it all in with pieces of light foam, just to fill it completely in. Then I'm gonna set those bubblers and we'll move on. But you can see all of this kicking here is because this corner is somewhat unsupported down here. We also have tie wire tying back into the forming behind. So we've done belt, suspenders, and then a little bit of praying, a little bit of all of it. This kicker here will also keep these from bowing out. We sometimes, if they were longer stairs, would go ahead and kick it down to the ground, and we would try to pour these stairs way before the floor so we'd have time to pull that, an hour later and work it out. So basically the layout right here is anything you see up at this level here in our splicer is a return. They're about 16 inches down from the top. They will create, they'll return all the heated water. We'll point them down. Because we have an infinity edge, we don't need to try to create circulation on the surface like we would in a typical, regular pool. So we have 14 returns in this pool, and we have 16 lights, 14 in the walls, and then we're gonna have the 2 bubblers. So we have a light right here you can't really see coming through this stair. Then we have another light over here. Then we have 3 down this side, the exact same thing on the other side. And then we have a light coming out of the side of the living room. And I'll show you after the pour how we're running all the conduits to this stuff. It's pretty interesting. We have 1 here, we have 2 on the back side so that narrow area doesn't get too shadowed, and then all basically identical layout. I'm gonna show you this right here, guys. This is a linear main drain, typical, but this is not actually a drain. Something that Eric's been designing into a lot of our hydraulic designs is when we have a spillover of this magnitude of 30 feet, 60 feet in this case, we are sending water back to the pool through this fitting. It creates a really nice boil without a lot of turbulence, so you're not gonna see like a bunch of turbulence on the top of the water. And this thing is capable of moving like 250 gallons a minute through it as a drain. So we have 2 of them. We have 1 here and 1 on the other side that will create our boil coming out of the big 5-horse XF pump. So we have 2 of these that suck water out of the catch basin in a 3-inch pipe. So you have 3 2.5-inch ports dropping into a 3-inch pipe, pulling into the pump in parallel. Okay, then it runs back in, no filtration, no anything. We just send the water straight back in. This is a spin cycle. This is creating the infinity edge. That's a single dedicated pump. That's the entire system. Just, suck and blow. Let's go. The rest of the pool is operated, the heat, the filtration, and the chlorination is operated by, it'll pull out of that skimmer in the catch basin and this main drain over here. Like I said, this main drain is capable of 240, 250 gallons a minute by itself. So this one main drain will be sufficient for the suction side. This will pull out, the skimmer will pull out of the catch, and it will run through the filter, the heater, and the salt chlorine generator before returning into these 14 returns. One cool thing, we got returns all along this infinity edge wall. Because we have the 4 inches of foam on the outside, we can hide those pipes and you'll never know it's there, but we still get good circulation on this massive pool. So this is the basic. We have a rebar on 6-inch centers. You can see most of it's pink foam or pink bar, Owens Corning. And then every 4 feet, we lay a piece of steel in all directions. That steel is connected to all of our vertical steel. That's every 4 feet. The top row is steel. And then we have bonding wires you'll see sticking out every so often that all come together. And that's the way we bond these pools without using too much steel. Because ultimately, I would like to use no steel. We're waiting for the municipalities and the codes to catch up with how they want us to bond it if there's no steel. There's plenty of ways to skin that cat, but I'm not promoting systems that your inspector may or may not be up to speed on until they are. But at least right now, we've already reduced the steel by 80%, and we're using more and more fiberglass because that stuff is going to last forever. And the steel in a salt pool, assuming some water gets into the ground one way or another, it has a lifespan, whereas the fiberglass stuff is way beyond that. So that's kind of the thinking, guys. Concrete's going to be here in about 30 minutes. I'm not nervous yet, but I'm sure I will be. We're still waiting on some of the labor to show up. So I'm going to get out and talk to some of the training guys that missed getting to be here for the Pour Friday, so they came back to be here today. So I'm going to hop out, chat with them, and get ready to. Okay, guys, as you can see from this little teaser vid, the pour turned out great. I think this video is long enough. I will bring you guys next week a full video of the pour, so stay tuned for episode 2 of this awesome project. See the framers making some progress. The project's going great, guys.